You know, none of us would be in this position to be able to play Gaelic games if it wasn't for the previous 70 years and the people in 1948 who decided to establish the club. And there's a lot of people that have come between then and now that if it wasn't for them, if there was any gap or if the club had died, it would have taken a massive effort, or who knows whether we could have established it again.
Brendan.
No,
I know the other Brendan McCarthy.
You're a good
The best
judge
player, he's dead.
You're a good judge of a player.
You arrived in Montreal?
I arrived in Montreal on October the 5th, 1956. I was involved with the club straight away because my brother Peter lived here, and I had my first experience around the 10th of October up in the mountain. I was more interested in hurling, but some of the fellows said, "Come on, Brendan, you're okay. You're good enough to play football." So I was recruited. It was a community as well as keeping fit, and as a young fellow like myself, we didn't have anything else but the hurling and the football. And it was, I just got great enjoyment out of it, you know, especially to be picked on the Montreal team was really special for me, yes.
How many players were there?
Well, I had a brother here that was in the Presentation Brothers at that time. And I got my passport to go to Australia. But the two guys that I was supposed to go to Australia left because I wouldn't leave home because my mother was alone. Everybody else in the family, I'm the youngest of 11, and everybody else had immigrated. So I stayed home to keep the small farm we had running. And
When you came over here?
while my brother, I convinced him to come back from England. He was married and he had one child, and he came back and took over the small farm, and I immigrated to Canada. This is the main reason it remained so popular is you had always people that was interested. Like Martin Green, like, was the soul of the GA here, like. And there was no money in the GA here, like, that was very important. Like, he must have travelled to Ireland at his own expense because he made a couple of trips to Ireland to get recognised. Because we were the first team in Canada to be recognised by the board in Ireland.
Yeah, that's serious.
I think it was because the love of the game and with the hurling and Gaelic football and with the amount of people that were really interested at the time. They just wanted to keep the games of the Gael going in Montreal. Yeah.
I came as a novice with the Presentation Brothers,
Okay.
and I taught with them for 15 years.
Okay.
And then they moved back to Ireland and I stayed here. So I played for Montreal and I was proud of it for 15 years. We had a core of players that were championship calibre.
Right.
Among them John O'Brien, Matt Dooley, Henderson, there were several of them. But I still hold these guys very dear to my heart.
When I started in '57, the late Martin Green was the man that was running up and down the sidelines. Come on, lads, come on, lads, come on, get into it. And years after, when Martin passed away, Paul Moden stepped in his shoes without missing a beat. Running up and down the sidelines, picking on the other guys on the other team. And if they answered him back, he told them to dry up.
Winning matches.
Not that polite.
I think.
So I picked Martin up when we drove out to the East End and went to the wedding. They served soup. And Martin says, I never seen coffee, he says, with two hands on the mug.
You wasn't impressed?
Jeez, he wasn't impressed at all with it.
All right. That's fair.
Yeah, well, I mean, as I say, around '95,
The club was mainly focused in two mountains. Paul Moran, Peter Moran, these guys were keeping the club going, and a lot of the players at that stage were from two mountains. Peter's friends, a lot of really good players, but mainly Canadian born. And I guess I would have played my first game, sometime summer of '95. When I met the guys, maybe I was maybe one of the few Irish guys on the team. Maybe there was only one or two at that stage.
I was introduced to the club by Cal Marlowe, who was the president at the time, and he invited me to be the coach. So I thought, great, I'd missed it. I'd been 6 years in Holland. I hadn't really had much involvement with it there, and so I decided to coach the team, or to take up the opportunity to coach the team. Now, what he didn't tell me was that it was kind of an interesting time in the history of the club. So in actual fact, when I came in, I didn't realise it at the time I came in, but there had been two teams. Basically, for the few years leading up to that, there was a team from like the Two Mountains area that Peter Moran was running, and then there was a team of Irish guys that were kind of downtown. And they were sponsored by McKibben's, so there was actually two separate teams going on. Both of them actually quite successful, or at least relatively speaking. McKibben's team, I think, won the Power Screen Junior Championship one year, and the Two Mountains team was in the final a different year. So anyway, I came into it not really knowing any of the background to this, and then quickly realised that there's like two factions here, and I've got to kind of pull them all together. So it was actually quite challenging. Where you decided to train was if you trained up in Two Mountains, the city guys weren't that interested. If you trained in the city, the Two Mountains guys weren't that interested. So there was a little bit of a diplomacy aspect to it as well. But
Paul, I was going to say to you, the first time I ever played in Montreal, it was the first time anyone ever bought me a drink after the game. I remember we went down to some...
That must be me.
Yeah. But you know what I didn't know that day
my drink back and say,
I should have taken a picture, because that's the only drink you ever bought. No, but we went... It was a unique thing when you, as I say, you played that first game, and we went somewhere in LaSalle, I think, or whatever, after the game, and all the team went in, and we had a big long table, and you and Billy were up the top, and Pat was there as well. And you guys, if I remember correctly, you paid for all the players to have a chicken dinner or whatever, and a couple of pictures were put out. Remember that you three guys chipped in. I think I tried to pay for my own, and you told me not. So, in those early days when I came over, you guys were like, you're like the godfathers of this team. That no one had to put their hand in their pocket. I was shocked.
Well, how do you think this hand got that much longer than the other one? Well, what in my pocket?
I know. No, there's a word for it. You've them crocodile hands. Those ones that don't go down into the pocket.
So there's a tendency for the Irish to get together and help each other. And they do this in sports. So when you grow up playing Gaelic football, you want to continue playing it as long as you can. And the social aspect is very encouraging as well.
I met with this guy, came to visit me. I lived out in the East End, and this guy came. He was from the next parish at home. He knew I was here, so he got an address and visited me. His name was Willie Fahey. He's still here in Montreal. And he's convinced me that we should go in the St. Patrick's Day Parade. And we went on the St. Patrick's Day Parade. We went and rented these top hats. And this year will be my 62nd consecutive year on the Patrick's Day Parade. The G was one of the best things that ever happened to me. Like, you get lots of friends. And the Montreal Shamrocks were always very close, whether the guy came from the north of Ireland or the south of Ireland, or made no difference. You were very close, like the whole group was very close.
We continued with that, and again, we always had the Moran School announcing at the after party of the parade, and that was a big occasion for all the families in the Irish community as well. to be able to get together. And I believe the guys still do that and keep that going, which for me that was fantastic, because you can be a little isolated in your bubble of playing and the players, and come in, watch some matches, and you'll meet some of the older guys, but once you actually see that there's a wider community there and that you're a part of it, then it's pretty special. And especially, as people get older and you get the second and third generations that have an affiliation with the club. Like I remember a time on the executive looking through our membership list, and it was hundreds of people, and you might have known 30 or 40, but there was a couple of hundred people there that were getting letters sent out to them asking for their membership, and just keeping them involved. You mightn't have got a reply from all of them, but you would have got a reply from some of them, and it meant a lot to them that we were still reaching out to them as well.
We have an expression at the club here, I guess hashtag Shamily is what they say at the girls, especially. It's really a family here, and for a lot of people, I think even some of the older members referenced it as well, that a very close community. Yeah, I guess one of the big ways we try to attract and recruit players, we tell them we work hard and play hard. Definitely play even harder, I'd say. A lot of social activities we try to get involved in. Obviously, the St. Patrick's Day is a big one. We've tried to encourage some of our older members to be attending that with a big family kind of get together after the parade with music and dancing. We're lucky enough that we have a lot of talented dancers and musicians within the club that we can avail of.
Dennis Lyon, God rest his soul, was one of the best footballers that ever played for Montreal. Dennis Lyon.
How long was he here, John? Was he here long
Oh,
time,
he
or-
was here a good while, Dennis Lyon.
Yeah.
Well, you see, like, he was a kind of a likeable guy because he had great connections.
Yeah.
Like anybody that could get Terry Kelly 2 jobs had to have connections. And he did. He got Terry Kelly 2
Sounds
jobs,
like something you
got
did.
him 1 job, and the company went out of business. And he got him another job in the bank. He ended up
Oh yeah, he
retiring
was
from the bank.
real businessman.
He had great connections.
Yeah. I think I mentioned it earlier on there years ago. You know that St. Anthony's Church down on
Yes,
St.
yeah,
Antoine?
Anthony's.
Anyway, there was PJ O'Donnell from Galway. PJ was in town. He was visiting at the time, and I said to PJ, I said, "There's one of the older guys in the GA that just died, and there's a funeral mass room down at this church." So I said, "We'll go along." So PJ came along, and anyway. It was a small church and funeral mass and so on. So Dan Grace's wife came over to me, and she looked around and she said, "Listen," she said, "that man's soul will never get to heaven unless someone sings a song." So, she was obviously looking for a hymn. Anyway, Pat Dunn got up and he started out, "There's one fair county in Ireland." That's not what she was looking for.
The worst moment I had was down in the hotel in Toronto. I went out for a walk and I came back, and who'd be standing at the door when I came back? Only Jimmy Dempsey, Kildare man. And I says to him, "Jimmy, come up to the room." I says, "I have beer." So we go up to the room, but I had no opener. And them old bottles, you couldn't, Jesus, you couldn't. So Dempsey got the bright idea. He says, "I'll phone down." He says, "Now order a bottle of ginger ale." So he phoned down, ordered the bottle of ginger ale, and the guy came up with the bottle of ginger ale, but he had it opened. And he had no opener. So the guy was searching his pockets and he pulled out a wood screw. And he gave it to Dempsey. Dempsey had his shoe off and he's beating it. And the beer is up to the ceiling. Oh, that was one of my best weekends. I was always registered both in hurling and football because we belonged to the American board, and there was a ruling in the American board. You could play 13 players, but you had to have 13 on the field before the second half started. So if we didn't have enough of players, I always went on. If we were playing out of town, and we always had trouble with players travelling. It was, even that we had lots of guys, it was a problem. It was no joy. I picked people up in Villasal and went to Buffalo, which is more than 400 miles, and you had to have them back by 12 o'clock at night. So, and they played 2 games. So it was kind of rough. A lot of Irish people went to Beaver Lake, you see. That was kind of a Sunday outing. So there was throngs of people sitting around there when we played the games in Beaver Lake. Like, we were always very lucky that somebody didn't get it with this thing.
So there's, I mean, it wasn't a standard size, but it was good enough for us to play games. Nobody had any complaints about the size of the field. They just wanted to play.
You had to get a permit from the city for to play. Like Loyola was the home, like, I mean, up until they built a church on the grounds where we played. But Loyola, we had good connections in Loyola because there was a guy there that would give us the lime and the machine and everything for us to mark the field. No charge.
I mean, the process of getting the pitch really seemed to be something like that. We would just land on the pitch and hope no one else showed up for a lot of the times. I mean, we've had challenges with the city, and it's surprising, I guess, to everyone. I would have presumed that the Irish are, you know, there's a shamrock on the flag of Montreal, but yet we don't have an Irish social centre. We don't have an Irish football pitch. You know, so there's been efforts through the years to try and get that underway, but we still don't have a home, which is terrible. And you would think, you know, at this stage, the powers that be locally would have done something for us by now. But yeah, so I mean, we've been basically, you could say we've been nomads to some extent for a lot of the years. We had a pitch in LaSalle, I guess, that would have been through the 90s and probably before. You've seen the pictures. You know, we would have been in Rutherford Park on top of the reservoir there on the mountain. You could be playing there, and there could be a guy walking across the pitch going home from work. So, you know.
Like, I mean, you go to any village in Ireland, like, I mean, you have a church, a pub, a post office, and a GAA field. And the GAA field is just as important now as any of the other institutions, as a lot of people will say.
It's the biggest problem the Montreal Shamrocks have right now is land and field to play on. So getting one field at the Black Rock, even though it won't be full size, but it's like gold dust. It would be, it's the lost ark for us. You know, it's massive.
Broom ball started off as a pastime. There wasn't too much training that we could do in the winter months. So broom ball was started up by a bunch of fellas, including Paul Moden from another Galway man. We played outdoor rinks and temperatures 25, 30 below zero, and was almost like hurling on ice.
The Dome of Concordia, I think we started renting those facilities back in 2013. I think when we had started the Super League, we realised that we were going to lose all the momentum if we didn't keep it going in the wintertime. We find that we were starting from scratch again in the spring, so we looked into where we could rent those facilities. Just contacted the Dome. Obviously, it's a very expensive outlet to rent, so a lot of fundraising and looking for sponsors to help fund that. So we started booking that in 2013, and that really helped us to grow from there, because we're getting a lot of support actually from St. Patrick's Society in Montreal as well to help fund that on an annual basis, and that's allowed us to have to rent that facility every year since then.
Yes, this is an All-Ireland medal. It was I won 2 of them playing for Montreal when we won the Northern Division of the American League.
We competed against teams like Boston, Toronto, Syracuse, Rochester, Buffalo, and Hartford, Hamilton, Ottawa, later on. Yeah. So we were really involved. We wanted to be involved. Yeah.
We were more integrated. We were more together than I figured that the other teams were. There was greater camaraderie, greater friendship among the Montreal players.
So I would say in mid 90s, maybe 90% of the team would be local Canadian guys, and their sports would be so you can imagine the game would be quite physical because their sports would be hockey or Canadian football. That's soccer to some extent, not so much, but those were the skills they would bring. They would be very abrasive in the tackle. So we'd play games against Toronto teams, and they, a lot of Irish guys and think they're really skillful and so forth. And they might come in once or twice into the square, but they wouldn't come in 3 times.
Okay. So
And that's but so if you can merge that Irish skill with the Canadian skill of the tackle, which is very strong. I mean, within the rules, of course. But I remember these guys that come in from Brampton, and typically northern guys, from north of Ireland, would come in, maybe Tyrone, that kind of thing. You get the picture, fancy footballers. But they'd come in, score a goal or whatever. And I just remember one of the guys, I think he was coming in for his 3rd goal, jinking, doing all the moves. Canadian fellas had enough of this. So you see it in the CFL, it's called the torpedo tackle. Yeah. So this guy comes in and your man just goes down and takes, and your lad goes up in the air, spins around, and he's in a heap, And that was it. They didn't score any more goals because they understood. But there's a respect in GAA that if you're 10 points, 15 points ahead, you don't keep putting the ball in the back of the net. But these Tyrone guys were, But like I say, the Canadians sent them a message there. So that it's that kind of thing. You have to have respect for that.
There was a guy in.
Ricky Cronin was from Buffalo.
Yeah, Buffalo was. Yeah, okay. Well, I remember. This was just, I think, my 2nd game, and somehow or other you put me marking him, and he was the dirtiest player I ever played against in my life.
What's he from, Kerry?
Tyrone.
Oh, I don't know where he was from.
Well done, girls. Go on. Yes. Where are the forwards? Go on, Paula. Go on, Paula. That's all I wanted.
And of course, once we saw that the boys had a team, I think I started to stir a pot a little bit, commenting to it. There was a young lady who was a partner of one of the gentlemen who played, Gavin. And I said, well, Rosalie, you played as well. Well, why aren't you playing? I said, we don't have a ladies team. Well, why don't we? And then that turned into me recruiting waitresses. Anybody who walked in my shift, that was unfit was turning around and trying to run away because I was looping someone in, like telling them rugby. It's tough on the injuries, eh? You need something that's, that's a little less painful. Why don't you try this? Let's see. So from there, we literally were just grabbing anybody who would take it on. What was so beautiful about the beginning of the ladies' team was, apart from 2 ladies from Ireland, none of us had played before. But I do remember us having a tournament, and I had 3 lady friends coming over from Camlock, County Down. And they were coming over for what they thought was a holiday of touring, so on and so forth. And I just made sure that there were extra trainers, and next thing you know, they were playing on the field without choice, no questions asked. And I believe one of them actually won an award. So like from being on holiday on the sideline saying, okay, we'll come with you because we don't know where we are, to put your boots on, you're playing, and that's it.
Ladies football game started to pick up early 2000s, I guess, and they had a very strong team. And I mean, I was a coach, the coach manager of the Shamrocks, the men's team, for quite some time. Brendan Reid was the coach of the ladies team. And I mean, this problem persists to today, that we have a challenge to get fields. So you'd have the men's team at one end and the ladies team at the other end of a small pitch. And so, there was a bit of managing of space there, let's say, and so forth. But look, the ladies team, I guess it mirrors the club's history to some extent. They've had very highs in 2000s, where they went to lows that, with no team for a couple of years again, and now again they're on the way up. So it's, it swings and roundabouts.
That was probably when ladies Gaelic got going here, but it was due to people like Anne Carroll, who was daughter of an immigrant, an Irish immigrant, and she'd seen the game. Obviously, she had an interest in setting up a ladies' team, and she did phenomenal work to pull that together. And I'll be honest with you, actually, in the early days of them, they were super committed, much more than the guys' teams were, to be honest with you.
Yes, when we started back in 2002, 2003, 2004, there was just a couple of girls. I think we started with 4 or 5 girls, and then we played with the man. The Super League was only 2 teams that were called Setenta and Cuchulainn. And so there were about 2 or 3 ladies per team. And eventually we started a ladies' league on our own, but there was only 3 or 4 players at the time, 5, 6, and then we built up to 10. And eventually we had our own squad, but because there was no other women to play in Montreal, we had to travel to Ottawa or Toronto every other week in order to be able to have a league, and half the time these teams would have to give us players as well. And when we look at now, at the Meet Tournament 2018, we have 2 full squads for ladies. 2019 we're aiming for 3 squads, and when we look at the number of women's team on the Super League team, it's also amazing to see that this sport has grown this much over the past 17 years, so it's fantastic.
So I've been playing Gaelic football with the Shamrocks since 2016. I joined the league and there wasn't many women playing, and then since 2016 we've really brought on a huge number of women, and we've been really trying to promote ladies Gaelic football. So something that I've been doing, and with the help of Vero, we've been screening LGFA matches live at Concordia. So these have been screened for the first time this year with Lidl and back in Ireland on Facebook, and then we would screen them live, have a place where women can come to watch the match. So that's been a really great learning experience for a lot of us. And then also Concordia had only had the men's team, so that was something that I decided we would have to have a Concordia women's team. So that was something we did for the first time this past year, was have a full women's team in our Super League. So
when I got here, the club have an internal Super League, and they were playing some hurling, but they only had 2 teams and it was co-ed. And since then it has developed into 3 full squads, and we introduced new teams, new names, new sponsors and jerseys, and it's fantastic. And each team is named after a borough in Montreal, so they're grounded and in the city, which is fantastic. And now, 3 full teams. We still play co-ed, so we play camogie rules in our internal league. But we're hoping that with the numbers we're seeing recently, that actually we're going to be able to split that. And it's just following the same model as the football, because that was the same when you're just building the numbers and recruiting people. You play co-ed until you have enough people. I'd say we're hopefully about a year away, maybe less if we're lucky, because we have so many camogues playing now in the last year. It's just exploded. We have about over 30 camogues, pushing 40. Yeah. And some of them are just single players, like they just play camogie. Like most of the players, they sort of emigrate over from football. We interest them, we kind of prod them a little bit to give it a go, but some of them are they're full blown into the camogie now. That's their main focus. Like some of the players who are going to the World Games, they've just taken it on. But yeah, they've just jumped right in, and the passion that we're seeing from people who aren't Irish or don't even necessarily have any Irish heritage, but they just fall in love with the sport. It's fantastic. People are welcome to join and try out camogie anytime. It can look intimidating at first because it's a game with sticks, and if you don't know what you're doing, and the fact that we only wear helmets and no other protective gear can put people off, or certainly make them dubious about trying it. But it's such a welcoming club and an easygoing environment to try out a new sport, and if you take to it, that's fantastic. If not, you can still stick around. We're a very friendly and open club.
You know, when we used to go up to Toronto, and I remember Cathal Marlowe would give us some advice, tips, how to. And he'd say, so you say 1 room should be enough, and you say, but Carl, there's 10 of us. He said, you take the mattress off the bed, and 4 fellas could sleep in the base, and another 4 could sleep on the mattress on the ground now, and another fella inside the bathtub. Now, and this was grand. This used to go on for a long time. But we talked earlier about when the ladies got involved, right? And then there was a total shift. We went up to Toronto, we go to the hotel, there's a spa and a swimming pool in the hotel. So it was a complete mind shift when the standards were raised by the ladies when they got involved, in terms of accommodation at least.
GAA World Games.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. So we've put together a pretty strong squad and we're practicing together frequently. And yeah, it's going to be great.
And is this your first time? Have you been to Ireland before? Or?
No, never been to Ireland before. Yeah. So really looking forward to that.
But we're making sure to bring them to Sligo, so we'll get some football and camogie played in Sligo as well. But yeah, the team going to the World Games, they're all non-Irish players, so they're all made up of Canadians, French, American. It's fantastic, all these different nationalities playing the sports.
I started young playing hockey and football, played my entire life, still play hockey on weekdays. Since then I picked up Gaelic football, haven't stopped playing, and hurling's been a new passion. Hurling, a lot of on-the-ground stuff is kind of like hockey, but I find it's a little closer to, I guess, maybe baseball or softball that I've played in the past recreationally. It's easier to make the eye contact and hit the ball that way.
Fair. Up until a month ago, I didn't play sports with sticks. So this is all new territory. Like, I can hit things and I can catch things, so if I can put them together, we should be okay.
There's 5 going from Eastern Canada. We have 2 ladies football teams, senior and a junior, a camogie team, a football team and a hurling team.
I think they said there's 1,300 players, which is really incredible. Yeah.
It's going to be something.
I guess around the time I was coming over, they had a very good ladies team around that time that just was on the point of retirement. I suppose a group of girls who were all around the same age and kind of were starting to end their playing days. And the same with the guys as well. They had campaigned for many years, competed against teams from Toronto and made many trips down there. And it was obviously very tough to continue that on a regular basis. So I guess by about 2009 we were at a pretty low ebb, I would say. We only maybe had no more ladies teams, we had no hurling team. We had maybe about 20 guys playing, and I remember our May tournament, which was traditionally a very, very strong tournament. We no longer had the Toronto teams participating in that either, so we ended up with a tournament with Quebec City and the Australian rules team. It was just the 3 of us playing in a tournament, so just very lucky, I think, with the people we had here. We seemed a very dedicated bunch of people, very passionate. And I think when you have passionate people around like that, just very lucky to have them. Like guys like Stephen Owens, Tony Cunningham, a lot of the ladies who were involved here as well, who played a big part in getting the ladies going here. Jen Dumais, Kathleen Zook, a lot of these people who kind of founded Mariette, for example, who would have put a lot of work into the ladies. So just they're examples of, it's hard to pick out these people, but it's a lot of people who would have given a lot of their time, dedicated and passionate, and we just got all those people together and just drove on from there. Everyone kind of took on a role, either as coach or training or organising events off the field, recruitment, whatever it might be.
You were going out on a Thursday night, you'd have maybe 4, 5, 6 guys training. So maintaining, interest from people and maintaining a good flow of football just wasn't possible, because there was months in between competitive games. There was nothing to people's interest. So this is really the reason why the Super League was born. I was thinking that we needed competitive games. We needed something that would keep people's interest. And so the idea was to introduce something like what was known at home as the parish league. Like parishes would break up families or break up town lands and then play amongst each other. So just with the numbers that we had at the time, we put together, just made 3 teams. And we called them the Goose Village Black Rocks, which was Goose Village was an old Irish neighbourhood that was torn down, and the Black Rock was down there. So of course the Black Rock, massive significance in Irish history in Montreal. That was one team. The Griffintown Gaels was another team. Again, Griffintown, great Irish history, and the Verdun Vikings. We called the Verdun Vikings. We called them that because I lived in Verdun at the time. And so I thought we'd call a team the Verdun Vikings. So we all started playing. It was a Saturday afternoon in June 2012, and it was lashing and it was freezing. It was cold for a June afternoon. But we got people out. We dragged people out that hadn't even played before, and we played 3 games. Each team played each other twice, and we had 6 aside that day. 18 people showed up on the first day. And then we started playing Super League once a month. The second Super League in July had 27 people. Some people from Ottawa came down. And then it just grew slowly from there. You know, we used to play once a month for the next couple of years. We played on a Saturday. We kept the same format with the 3 teams. It was co-ed or mixed, as they call it. Ladies and men's playing for the same teams. So that was great. And that just continued on for a couple of years. So now we have 3 fully fledged Super League leagues in Montreal. Men's football, ladies football and hurling. And it runs on a weekly basis from the start of January right through to the middle of October. I believe from its humble beginnings in Rutherford Park that day of 18 players, we're now the only city in Canada that offers competitive ladies, men's and hurling football from January to mid-October. Last year in 2017 we had just under 200 people play Gaelic sports in Montreal, whereas in 2012 we were running at about 20 to 25. These 200 people that are playing in the Gaelic sports, it's about 70 now to 80% non-Irish. You know, so it's all Canadian people and non-Irish people playing. So we're really introducing the Irish culture into the local community, and that's something that we're really proud of. You know.
Again, I suppose the demand now, we have 2 seasons. We have a winter indoor season and then a summer outdoor season, which is fantastic. So you can play Gaelic games all year round, essentially.
So I'm part of the Gaels team in the Super League, and Vero is part of the Vikings. Yeah. So every week we meet. There's a men and women's match that's played, and then right after a men and women's match, we play co-ed co-ed hurling. Our hope is to eventually have a camogie league and a separate hurling league, so that the women will be able to play their own game and the men can play their own game. For the time being, we're not at that stage yet, but that's maybe where we're headed in the future.
It's a good way of practicing our skills for the summer as well, because summer is so short here in Quebec. That having a chance to play all winter long every week from January up until April is giving us a good chance to not only practice but have fun and develop our teams as well. So it's fantastic that we have that opportunity.
We have a youth program happening now as well, and part of it was getting a lot of qualified coaches happening, and with the support of the Eastern Division and the Canadian Board, we now have, I think, over 20 foundation coaches in Montreal that are qualified to coach kids. So now we have to go and find kids for them to coach, which is the next step of what we're trying to do. And one part of that is just having, on the weekends during the summer, is just having an opportunity for, I suppose primarily at the minute it's more children like yourself of Irish people that want to kind of keep the kids attached to something to do with Irish culture, but the plans and the ambitions are much wider than that, like the GAA, because the GAA has a community ethos, and it's not an Irish community ethos, it's whatever community you're in.
Yeah, well, there was a youth program before myself, but then after about a year I knew I wanted to be more involved in the club, so I joined the exec team as the youth officer. And since then we've been doing a yearly summer camp, so 6 weeks. This year it's going to be 8 weeks. And basically it's a really good opportunity for kids to come into the Gaelic community, to the Irish community rather, learn Gaelic sports. And then this year we're also sending some families to the CYC for the second time. Yeah. So this is the second year we've done this project, where we have 2 coaches come in from St. Mary's University College in Belfast. This year our 2 coaches were Leanne and Donna, and they went into 5 schools in Montreal, 2 high schools and 3 elementary schools. So basically they taught a bunch of kids who wouldn't have access to these games. They were more lower income communities. So they taught these kids about Gaelic football and hurling. And we're hoping just to keep the program going and recruit more kids and just get the word out.
And the idea now is to start looking at how can we transfer that into the club and make sure that the club is there, helping anyone that then wants to practice it outside of school. And sport is me. I'm not aware of any other sport that would have that, and that's where the amateur ethos comes in, is that all the money that's generated at the top level gets redistributed to grassroots, and Like, it's amazing to think that money generated in Ireland gets spent in Montreal, and to help support that kind of development.
For the first time, we have an official field. We have a permit. It's fantastic. It's in Verdun. It's right next to the natatorium on the South Boulevard. So yeah, we're really excited about that. To this year, we have about 15 to 20 signed up kids. But we're hoping to send a full squad to the CYC, the Continental Youth Championship. Last year we had to put our kids on other teams just to make up numbers, so I'm hoping to send a Montreal team for the first time.
Wanted to find a way to have a space where the kids would have a target to hit, I guess, and have kids' games with a kind of a manageable size of goalposts. So that was one of the main reasons we had brought them over initially. But it's something we can bring to any event now and have an exhibition game with. But I guess it's always been the challenge with goalposts. We adapt. Even in Concordia and Loyola there, we're using soccer goals, and we had a bright spark in the club who went to Home Depot and managed to get some little retractable extensions that we could attach onto the soccer post to make proper Gaelic posts for our games.
The fish committee got recognised, and they were having their fish out in the West Island. That's when we started our tournament. That would have been in 1966. No, sorry, 1986. But the only two teams in the tournament was Ottawa and Montreal. Played both hurling and football and tug of war, because Ottawa crowd were crazy on this tug of war business. You pull your guts out.
And really the holy grail for the Montreal Shamrocks would always be to try and win the May tournament. And presumably it still is. I mean, now with the Eastern Championship and so forth, that are important events. But it's very important to try and win that own event. And those occasions were few and far between. You know, the Toronto teams were particularly strong. St. Mike's were very strong all through them years. Not just their first team, but their second team. And again, so, you know, there was always something to keep you coming back in terms of success. And if we did have a success, I mean, that Power Screen win, we got the cup back to Montreal, and I would say we were out for at least 2 weeks every night. And, you know, it was a crazy time. But like I say, you didn't do it for the success. It was more for the camaraderie and to keep the thing going, as the guys did before us.
I want to speak up for the Montreal guys. They have that chance just for me.
But it was quite funny actually when he said there, he was interviewed by a local TV station and they asked him how was it that he was refereeing the game, Montreal versus Toronto, when he was from Montreal, and was he going to give a fair team? He's like, of course I'll give a fair referee's performance. The Montreal guys can look after themselves, but I think everybody who knows Paul, probably been one of the most biased referees you could ever have in a field. We unfortunately couldn't have him here tonight, but we wanted to just give a little presentation to Peter. If Peter could come up and take a little presentation, we'd like to. being three-time former president and all the work he put in over the years, we thought it might be fitting to make him the first ever honorary president of the Montreal Shamrocks. So on behalf of the club.
Thanks, Robert. Thanks to the Shamrocks. My dad's fine. Little procedure, gonna drive us all nuts in a few days when he gets home. Swear. He's really disappointed that he missed tonight. He was really looking forward to this event. Circumstances prevented him from being here, but he will be really taken aback by this. Thank you very much.
Fantastic achievement yesterday. Montreal Shamrocks won the senior Montreal Made tournament through the work of people like Damien Keneally and Tony Cunningham and Ronan Corbett and Marty Lawless, people like this over the years. Getting like qualified and level 1 coaching has really improved things. And the Super League, because everybody's match fit all the time instead of coming in May and not having played for 8 months. Super League has everybody match fit, they're fit, they've been playing every week. And the boys turned up yesterday, and it was an absolute delight to watch. As I said, this is what they get when they drop me from the senior team. They go and win.
Yeah, it was amazing. It kind of speaks again to there's so many facets of GAA, and when you win a championship and you're trying to explain to people what the sport is. And I say when we won a championship at home with my home club, and you're saying you win it, it's not just a team, it's your community, it's your school teachers and your all your parents and your cousins and everything like that, and you all celebrate together. And I think when you emigrate and then you have other people that are in similar situations and your community becomes your family, and then over the years, we've struggled to compete against the Toronto teams, and yesterday when we won, and we won in dramatic fashion, and it was just an amazing feeling then when the final whistle goes, and then you're together, not just with the actual men on the team, but for the club. It means a lot that you're winning. So it's more than just a victory of winning a tournament, and it mightn't mean too much to many other people, but for us it means a lot. That you see all the work that's been put in around the club. And as I said, winning's not everything, but it's still nice to win, because it is a competitive sport, and you can't deny that people want to win and when you want to perform, because it's no fun if you're going out and getting bet all the time. So it's nice every once in a while to get a victory like that, and it was definitely a big day for the club, and it was an amazing way to top off the 70th weekend celebrations. You couldn't have written it any better.
And Tony was dead right when he was on about myself coming here. It gave me great pride and satisfaction. I probably didn't show it yesterday, but I see different people from different backgrounds, nationalities, not necessarily Irish, playing out Gaelic games and being part and parcel of what is great about Gaelic games. That for me, man, fell home, and then that's why yesterday it just didn't bring tears to my face, but it just reminded me the value of what it did for me, and I hope it does to a lot of people who play there for the Montreal Shamrocks that are probably from the same backgrounds as myself, and I hope that the Gaelic is the same as to the people who've carried the club through thick and thin, through good and bad times, okay? You're the reason why we're all here gathered tonight, celebrating a great night, and the reason why I've been lucky to be part of this, okay? I feel very humble and listen to the stories there being mentioned, okay?
All you're really looking to do is kind of build on what's come before. Like, I mean, you're only holding the baton for a little time, and what we'd like to do is just leave the place in a better situation than you find it, and that's kind of what we've been building on from on the backs of other people's work over the years. So
I feel like it's lovely too because like we grew up in Montreal, we have the Irish community, I have the rugby community, you have hockey, you have all these things. When you move across the world, like your club becomes your family. So like we've been known to call ourselves a Shamily, and like it's a cute little thing that we do, but it's true because you come over here and you might not know anyone and you join the club and you instantly have like 200 cousins. And like it's just like family because sometimes they will drive you absolutely insane, but like if you need something, they're also the first people that will say yes. And we're actually family.
Oh yeah. There's one thing I would like to say before I leave you guys. I'd like to congratulate the executive of the Montreal Shamrocks for the great job in keeping this thing alive. Right. That always worried me when things was going bad, that it would die in my time.
Yeah.
Now it's getting better, and I'm very proud of you guys.
Yeah.
Very proud.
Ladies and gentlemen, just to finish, someone once said that the way a team plays as a whole determines its success. You may have the greatest bunch of individual stars in the world, but if they don't play together, the club won't be worth the dime. The way the Montreal Shamrocks club play epitomises all that is good. Determination, the unity and the togetherness of this club is incredible. And while the association itself is known more as a sporting body, it's the way we conduct ourselves in our local community that is so very important. I want to congratulate you on an incredible 70 years, and as the Ambassador said, here's to 70 more. You'll be amazing.